Hi guys, and welcome to our brand new series called Back Chat. Now, what is Back Chat and why is Maggie here? So last year, as you would know, we only started our channel about 4 months ago. We've been overwhelmed with the support we've had from everyone. It's really been, it's just been an amazing journey, and we get to see, you know, such a different side of the hobby that we know and love so well, or we thought we did, and now we're learning all these new things and meeting all these new people, and it's been absolutely fantastic connecting with you all. Last year, I had a series called Kickstarter Diaries, and the idea of that was simply to share and justify all of my Kickstarter purchases. If you know me, if you know the channel, you'll know that I spend a lot of money on Kickstarter, and it was just my way of very casually sharing what I was backing and why. And as much as I enjoyed that series, there were a few things that weren't working so well in terms of, I guess, fitting it in and around the rest of our content. The first was, well, one, Maggie wasn't part of it, which she still doesn't engage with Kickstarter like I do.
I only play the games when they arrive in the mail.
You're like, what is this?
That's my extent of the involvement, yes.
But what was interesting is that in talking about them on camera, Maggie does all of our editing. And so often she would be editing the video and go, oh, this game's interesting. I'm going to look into this. And we would have this dialogue off camera that actually was quite interesting in and of itself, because I'm kind of talking to Maggie about the campaigns and why I'm backing it and justifying again why I'm spending our money on all of these games. And so we thought, why not bring Maggie in to this conversation?
So I'm not just having a conversation with a recording that you've already done. It's like I can actually just have it with you. Yeah,
exactly. And so I will continue to be the one that researches all the campaigns, but I'm going to narrow it down to a few to look at every 2 weeks. So we'll only be doing this series every 2 weeks from now on, because it allows us to focus on the ones that I'm truly passionate about. The other thing with doing it weekly last year was sometimes I was just trying to fill, I guess...
It was a quiet week.
Trying to fill the episode with games that really weren't well suited to us. And so this year, really want to focus hard on kind of what we know and love, and the games that I'm truly interested in backing, and talk you through that process. So I will continue to shortlist games, and then I will give Maggie the links to those shortlisted games, and she's going to look at them and give you her opinion of them from a thematic perspective as per our reviews. And I will continue to do what I do with all Kickstarters. Now, if you've watched our Why Own It series, we go quite in depth about mechanics and theme. That is not what this series is about. And I'll tell you why, because the way that I purchase Kickstarter games is kind of like a gift to my future self, or to us in the future.
Some would say irresponsible approach.
It is. And
but fun in a surprising, is this going to be any good? We will find out when we play it.
And Maggie always goes on about how my family has a thing about surprises.
They're weirdly strange about, they love surprises, and they get very strict about anyone giving anything potentially away of even 3 layers removed. It's a thing.
So after being together for, you know, coming up to 10 years, Maggie knows very, very much not to mention anything around my family, just in case it was a surprise. But anyway, back to Kickstarter. I love that feeling of getting a game and remembering backing it, remembering the campaign, but not really knowing that much about the game. And so for that reason, when I back Kickstarters, I don't do the research that I do before I purchase a game normally. I don't really watch a lot of playthroughs before backing it. I just get a sense of who the designer is, the publishing house, the kind of core mechanics of the game, and that's usually enough for me. If it's got deluxe components in some way or minis that I can paint, then I'm kind of all in. And I love that approach. And
it's different, because it's like a different criteria that you apply to Kickstarters.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so for that reason...
I'm learning all this.
So for that reason...
that's where the money goes. Okay, cool.
This will still continue to be quite casual. We're not going to give a full rundown of how the game plays, because we don't know. We don't know. We are looking at the same campaigns you're looking at and evaluating them, and
speculating.
Cannot emphasize enough that we are spending our own money. So as we always have, I will continue to spend my own money on games that I think we will enjoy. None of this is sponsored.
None of this is paid anything by publishers or anything like that.
Nope. So anyway, with that all out of the way, I want to cover off Kickstarter season 2021 because there have been some great campaigns that have started over the last couple of weeks. So let's get straight into it. So the first game that I'm really excited to talk about, and one that has the whole board game community talking, is one that launched quite early. First big game launch, I think, in 2021, and that's Darwin's Journey. And Darwin's Journey, if you don't know already, is a Euro game, and it's by CMON Luciani and Nestore Mangoni, who are the designer duo from the game Newton. A lot of people know and love Newton. We have not played it. Ooh,
it's on the list.
It's on the list.
It's on the list.
And I know that we have to get it. We have to get that game to the table. So, you know, if you own that game and you love it, tell us what about it you love. In the comments, would love to hear from you. But we know that that is kind of a well-appreciated game. And so that's a great starting place from any Euros to have that kind of history and backing of the designers. The game itself, you can see it's a big sprawling game. Yeah. And Maggie, what about the theme?
So, well, the theme, again, very superficially, just based on what we can see from the campaign, it's based on Charles Darwin, who we owe a lot of the theory of evolution to. But this game appears to take place around the time we're kind of going through the steps or the memories of the journals when he first landed in the Galapagos Islands, where was essentially the start of the discovery of all the different species. And so it looks like, the game is very much going to be retracing those steps. And what the element that I like is that you're dealing with different workers, and they have to upskill, like as they study and they learn more, then they can do more advanced activities or actions, so that then you can get more information.
Are you talking about mechanics?
Well, no, I'm not talking about mechanics. Just say like thematically what's happening, or at least this is my understanding of it. And then so the whole idea is to then get the most collective knowledge, so we can send back to museums, and then so we can all benefit from the biology lessons. Yeah.
And I guess this is, well, as soon as you say worker placement, we're like, we're in.
Yeah.
Because this is a worker placement game. My understanding of it is it has quite a variable setup, which will obviously give it a lot of replayability. There's lots of components on the board that actually change from game to game. And then you also have your workers or your crew, thematically. Did you like that?
Yeah.
You have your crew, and they all have different abilities. And if you can level them up, like Maggie mentioned, you use these kind of wax seals to improve their abilities and do big one-off effects. But also, when I'm looking at the game, what I love about it is it feels like there are multiple paths to victory. So, classic kind of point salad Euro, but also that there is a way to optimize based on your starting crew, based on what's put on the board. Like if you can work out how to best optimize the different combos, I think that's what excites me about this game. I do know as well that those ways of upgrading your workers that we spoke about, let's see if I can find a close up. Well, hold on. This part of the, where is it? This part of the board is where you can upskill your workers, but actually this is quite hotly contested because there's not a lot of them to go around for all of the players, and so it sounds like it's quite tightly competitive. I understand that there's a museum component. If you're interested in looking at how to play, before you play, our friends Monique and Naveen did a wonderful playthrough, and I did watch parts of that because, as I said, I don't like to get a full rundown of the whole game, but just to understand the mechanics a bit more. And they were talking about there's a museum component where if you're the first person to go there, that can be quite advantageous, shall we say, to the strategy. What I also love is this bottom part of the board. So if you've played any game where there's exploration involved, where you need to actually travel around and unlock certain things to get victory points. So, you could think about the bottom part of the Maracaibo board, for example, where you're traveling around to get certain things done. That is what's happening here, which I kind of love because it's almost like a side quest to everything else that's going on. The components, I mean, I'm all for wooden workers.
The wooden, I think the variety of the wooden workers look good. It's when we get to the seals, the wax seals, not the cardboard seals. Like there.
Yeah, this is the norm. I think you're getting a lot of like stuff in the game for kind of.
Can you go back up? Those little beads, the transparent research.
Research.
That reminds me of viticulture. That's one of my favorite. Yeah, the grapes. The multiple ways that you can use that. That was just so clever. But yeah, that's a nice little.
Yeah,
I wonder what you'll use it for though.
The other thing is that you have this individual player board each, and on those player boards you're also unlocking abilities.
Okay. Yeah.
So kind of like reminiscent of Great Western Trail, and I'm trying to think Cooper Island and games like that, where you're kind of revealing things that give you more powers in the game.
Yep.
Now, of course, if you watch Kickstarter Diaries last year, you'll know that I am obsessed with Deluxe components, but I often don't buy the coins, and that is something that annoys Maggie a lot.
Every time I'm like, what do you mean that there's beautiful metal coins and we're playing with the cover?
Because if you back a lot of Kickstarters, you'll know that often they can be the price of another game. Like they are ridiculously overpriced. But what I love about the collector's edition of this game is it comes with the metal coins, and also check out those wax seals. They're so cool.
Dream.
I don't even really understand how they're used, but I love them. And then you get a bag for the wax seals as well. And also what comes with the collector's edition is an expansion. So if you think about it like including the base game plus an expansion, once you want to add even more variability into the game, I think it's, this is one that I backed without even looking at the price, to be honest.
Yeah, it was no due diligence, which is very irresponsible. Going,
and I never do that because I always make sure that I'm looking at the price and the value, especially with postage to Australia, it can be really problematic. But you can see here, I don't know, this just says us. So I've backed it.
Well, we're gonna do a voting, but I feel like it's pretty obvious from our excitement that this is gonna be a yes, back it up. Yeah, let's back it.
Yeah. So we're gonna back that, and when we get it, we'll review it.
Yep. That's the plan.
Okay, Maggie, so you ready for your second game on the new series?
Let's do it.
It is CMON, the animation collection.
All right.
So this is a collection of games, which seems to be a bit of a trend lately on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Like launching multiple games at once. I guess it makes sense from a efficiency perspective, or getting people to go all in.
Can you buy individually?
You can buy individually.
Yeah.
So this is 3 games. CMON are well known for kind of those really big box games that include lots of minis and are usually quite over the top and have lots of add-ons and can be quite expensive on Kickstarter. This is, I would say this is pitched at families. It's Scooby-Doo, Teen Titans and Looney Tunes. Yeah. And when I first, read about them, Looney Tunes is the one that stood out to me.
Yeah, I think because we're old. That's the, I mean Scooby-Doo as well, but Looney Tunes by far, I think is what the prime target for, or cartoon, when we were a cartoon watching
And were you able to do any thematic analysis on these?
Yeah, well, it's very, obviously, it's intellectual property, so it's very much aligned with, the cartoon. So with Scooby-Doo, that's, it's co-op, so you're all trying to figure out the who's the monster before they scare off the whole town.
Yeah, interestingly, I saw that it actually is set in the final parts of an episode. So it's like right at the end when you're scrambling about to reveal who it was. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah. So that one is again, makes sense with the cartoon. Teen Titans, I don't actually know that much or anything about that cartoon. Old. We are too old for this, but that's competitive, and you're kind of playing all the different characters, and you're competing on things like who gets to take down the villain, and who gets the last slice of pizza, and who gets to take the best spot on the couch and things like that. So it's it sounds like a cutesy light game. And then the Looney Tunes one is just like the Looney Tunes. You're trying to anvil one another and take each other out, and Wile E. Coyote style. So again, it's competitive, kind of a light sort of theme. Although as I was going through it, it's actually not very light. Like all those cartoons that we watched, looking back on them, it's quite violent. It's quite violent.
It is quite violent, yeah.
But, let's not go into that.
So are many board games, let's be honest. Especially ones that are like that skirmish style, rolling to destroy each other. Yeah. And the Looney Tunes one, because I looked into the Looney Tunes one a bit more because that was the one that I was most interested in. Also, how we feel about cooperative games.
Yeah, we're not big on co-op.
So when I was thinking about what to back, it was going to be the Looney Tunes one. After looking at it, it is a lot of rolling and defeating each other, and it's just that kind of purely luck-based kind of gameplay. Is just, if you watch our channel, it's not at all what we like. But I did want to highlight these here and also show you, because I think there's a lot of families that will just enjoy being able to get their kids to focus on a game like this rather than maybe everyone be on their phones or whatever the case may be. I also really wanted to paint the minis, because the minis are really cool that come with this, but the Kickstarter version at least, the minis are all painted. So
And I don't know if they might do an unpaid business, because I think partly because of the target audience is not necessarily...
Yeah, exactly. That you don't want to have to wait for kids to... I don't know, maybe it's a way of getting kids into painting as well.
Yeah,
There's not very many fun things to paint in the mini world.
Yeah, universe. It can be very full-on fantasy, monster heavy.
Which is okay if you're into that, but if you're not, there's not many options.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's... So we're not backing this one.
So no, this is a not backing for us. No. But yeah. But people might be interested in it.
It's there, and if you're a family gamer, you might be interested to check it out. Now, the next one is way back into the universe that we're more comfortable with, and that is Tinner's Trail. This is by Martin Wallace. Martin Wallace lives in Australia.
Hey.
I don't know how close.
Let's pop down and say goodbye.
A lot of people say, are you near that person in Australia?
Do you know them?
It's
very big. Australia's quite big. But, we should
Australia is very, very big.
Good day. Let's have a game. Yeah.
But so Martin Wallace, most notably, he is the designer of one of Maggie's favorite games, Brass Birmingham.
Oh yes, I do love me some Brass Birmingham. So yeah, this is exciting. I think it looks
and so this is a redevelopment of one of his older games. So this game existed before. It's been modernized. I think not just in its components, but also slightly in its mechanics, and kind of brought into the modern era so that it can compete with other board games on Kickstarter and not on Kickstarter. But if you look at the pieces, I mean, immediately I saw this as dry Euro. Let's check it out.
Yeah. Exactly our kind of thing. So in Tinner's Trail, you are conglomerates, mining conglomerates in, I can't believe which century it is now. I think it's like 17th century. I'm not going to be able to find it.
You're not going to be able to find it now?
Themer fail. Anyways, so you are conglomerates of mining conglomerates. You're trying to figure out where to place your mines, and how deep to go with the mines. And obviously the deeper you go, the more expensive it gets.
Also, there's a problem with water, right? There's something to do as you're mining, it floods, and so you're also trying to get rid of water. I think that's part of the mechanics. Yeah.
But what I think is interesting thematically from this is not only are you mining for copper, I believe, and there was something else. It's like tin. It can't be tin and copper. It's like copper and is it tin?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's easy because it's Tinner's.
It's the Tinner's Trail.
Yeah. All right. So tin and copper.
It'd be weird if it wasn't tin.
But then you're not just mining for that. Then you're also, once you mine it, you're trying to time the best moment to sell it. So when to sell and buy. And then with the money that you make from that, you're also investing it in others. So you're diversifying, investing in other industries, in other areas. And then the earlier you invest, then the more likely or the higher your profits are going to be by the end of the game. So I think there's quite a lot of interesting components from an economics point of view.
Yeah, and again, you're touching on some of the mechanics there, but I mean, we're working with limited information with Kickstarter always, so I'll forgive you for that.
Yeah, and it's just based on my understanding of the theme. I'm approaching them from a theme point of view.
Actually, it just reminded me of a comment on YouTube or BGG the other day that kind of said to me that I had spoken about theme and that should have been Maggie's place.
Stole my line.
I must have overstepped at some point. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the mechanics, stick to my lane. And you can see here that on this board, there is this top left-hand corner, and that is the action spending or allocation, where it's a total of 10 points and you'll have your marker at the start, but as you do actions, depending on how powerful those actions, you have to spend more of these points. Yeah. So you're spending these
it's like energy points or worker points.
Yeah. So one action might take 3 energy points or work points, and you're moving yourself up. But what's interesting about it is it works kind of like a rondelle. You know how I feel about rondelle. Everybody knows how I feel about rondelles. But what happens is if you take lesser actions or actions that don't take as much energy, you only go 1 or 2 steps, then you get to go first. You get to actually do another action before the other people. So basically, if you're last on this track, you get to take the next turn, kind of like a rondelle. I love that because it forces you to make that trade-off of, do I do something more powerful but then have to sit back and wait while other people do lots of other things?
Tough
and
choices.
You kind of get that FOMO feeling when everyone else is still doing stuff. And I think that if you get to the end of that track, so if you spend all your points first, you get some kind of benefit, but then you also have to go last, in the next round. So it's kind of that constant trade-off of turn order. versus power of action. And then, as Maggie mentioned, there's this like economic part of the board where you also have to time it right for selling the resources that you are mining, and you're rolling a die, and that affects like the market. So that's kind of luck based, which means when you get a good price, it's like, ooh, I wasn't planning on selling, but should I do that now? And then you're reinvesting, and there's some interesting little things going on. In terms of, the backing levels, there is the base game, where you can see here, there's, just kind of standard looking components. There's a few things that they're unlocking along the way. But if we get down to the expanded edition, the expanded edition has a few little upgrades, but it also includes 2, I believe. Or no, I know one.
2 mini expansions?
2 mini expansions. Yeah, I thought it was 2. Oh, there we go.
Mini expansions, yeah.
So there's Arsenic expansion and the Immigration expansion. And again, so that's just building in some replayability. This feels like such a dry theme. Yeah. Such a dry theme. And we just love a dry theme. So
here for it, yeah.
Yeah.
So get on board with it.
This is a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Great designer. Want to see
backing it.
What this game's all about.
Yeah.
Why not? Now, the next game that I'm excited about that is currently live, well, these are all currently live, is Ping Yao, the First Chinese Banks. And this is actually by a designer that I wasn't aware of any of his games, because he is a Chinese designer, and this game was actually launched in China, and I believe that it's his own publishing house that are now trying to take these games that have been designed in China and bring them, I guess, to Western audiences. Okay. And I think that's really cool, because often, there's been a lot of talk recently in board gaming about, taking a culture that you don't really understand and appropriating some of the theme in order to kind of, just get people excited, and maybe not representing it completely well. Yeah. And so I really, really like that this is actually by a Chinese designer, and I can't wait to see more Asian designers and more Asian designs get translated into English, so that we can kind of learn from everybody's collective experiences about like how like they might have other mechanics and fun things that we've never even known about, but also like great themes like this one. Yeah, Maggie.
So, what's the theme in Ping Yao? We're looking at Ping Yao as the one of the cities, Chinese cities where they had the first banks. So this takes place at the time where the first banks in China are being set up, and where a lot of the wealth creation is going to be happening. So you're going to be doing a lot of banking style things. You're going to be issuing loans. You're going to be looking at growing your income through interest and that sort of stuff. And it seems like whoever has the most profits by the end wins.
So this game, like I mentioned, it was a game that was already released. Now it's being released in English, and I think the one thing, so there's an expansion as well that they're launching with this, the Golden Pawner, which brings in a slightly different theme, which is
the
pawn shops of like exchanging goods, which is really cool. We love a good economic game and a boring theme, but actually like I'm really interested to learn about this era and about the first banks in China. Like I just think that's really cool. But what really got me, so I heard about this game, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of in on that. But then it's this quote by Man vs. Meeple. So, and obviously I love their content. But you can see that it says, if you like Toi or Lorenzo Il Magnifico, then this is a game for you. And I was just like, bim, like
sold
backing. And like I said, I make backing decisions on even less than that. But to mention those 2 games in particular, they're 2 games that I really, really love and appreciate from a mechanics perspective. And there's been other great reviews like this. So certainly something that I wanted to check out. The game itself is a dice worker placement game. And so you are rolling die, and I believe that the values of the die then dictate, I think, even the turn order, but also the power of that die when you go to certain locations on the board. And then you can pay money on top of that to kind of change the die value. And dice worker placement is something that we really, really enjoy.
Yeah, we enjoy that.
Want to see more of that. And so kind of we have backed this one, or I backed this one, and Maggie approves.
Yeah,
I think you do approve.
I approve. I approve of this.
Approve of this one.
They often talk about how a lot of board gaming is accounting, like in disguise, and this is like accounting and not disguise. But we've played games like that before, and we haven't minded, like City of the Big Shoulders. It's very much accounting for accounting's sake.
It's just shares.
And and like I actually really enjoyed it. So I can totally see myself getting into this.
And if you're not into that, I can see a lot of people would also not be into this.
Yeah.
It's kind of a heavier theme.
Ooh, coins.
But I wanted to show you coins again. I wanted
Deluxe.
to show you this because normally I'm a fan of Deluxe components. But sometimes in Kickstarters, what I find is they add Deluxe components that don't really contribute to the gameplay, or they're not even used in the gameplay. It's like, here's a plushie, and it's a bit of a gimmick. And this to me is slightly borderline, like this Chinese festival gift bag. But for those of you who don't know, and probably can't tell just by looking at me, my mum is Chinese, so I'm half Chinese, which means that as soon as there's a theme like this, I'm just like, tell me all about it, and I'm really interested in it because I really I really cling to that part of my heritage. And when I see something like this, it is really beautiful, and it's coming from a Chinese designer. This is kind of the aesthetic that you see in China. And so not only the coins, which... coin lover. Maggie wants the
metal coins. Yes.
But the lacquer box here, it just gives me such vibes of like China, and it will just look beautiful on the table and just table presents. It does matter, and it helps get people excited about a game that in this case is pretty dry. So
potentially we'll see what we play.
So anyway, there's more on the campaign about how to play, but this is one that we are backing, and at that fancy festival level.
Awesome.
Now the next game that I want to talk about is actually 2 games. So here's that exactly what I said. Campaign. It's like becoming more popular to have multiple games in a single campaign. So this is 2 games by Elf Seeger, who I had not heard of actually as a designer. But the 2 games are Illumination and The Road to Canterbury. Illumination is a brand new design and a new game that he's launching this year. And The Road to Canterbury is actually an older design that he has modernized or changed the artwork to, I believe, fix some of the issues that people have with the game, particularly around the, some of the language and the iconography, the rule book, that type of thing. So it is a reprint, but also a slight redesign. And I've heard that this designer has a little thing for kind of darker themes and is a bit tongue-in-cheek about the themes. And these ones did amuse me, and that's why I put them on the list, because I thought you'd dig them.
Yeah, so in Illumination you're playing competing monks. It's a 2-player game, head-to-head, and
the old competing
religious, spiritual figures, which are meant to be all about harmony and love. But I actually really love that. I don't know, like, I'm so drawn to anything that's like, theology or religious or spirituality kind of stuff. But anyways, you're competing monks and you're trying to create the best scriptorium, which I believe is kind of like and this may be wrong, but I imagine it's kind of like a library. Just like with Biblios. I don't know what it is, like with monks being obsessed with...
they're documenting.
Well, yeah, they are documenting. They were the original library. So we have all of the books and things, manuscripts that we've been able to salvage. We have them to think. But anyways, they're obsessed with creating the best, having the best scriptorium. And you're illuminating, this is, I don't quite understand this, you're illuminating different like drawings or illustrations towards your books.
Yeah, because you're adding the symbols to these 3 pages of a manuscript that are in the center between each. This is a 2-player game.
Yeah, and it sounds like one of the monks has gone a little bit, overzealous, like over excited about it, and the drawings or the illustrations have become a little bit more like demonic and a bit on the dark side and the kooky side. And so it's essentially trying to bring together, see which monk is going to win, so which side is going to win. Even the contrasts that they have can be like almost nonsensical, so that's...
No, it made me laugh because you mean like there's like the demon and the angel right here on the box. You can see the pair-ups here.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. There's the knight and the dragon.
Yeah, makes sense. Legit.
Then it's like the monk and the rabbit that looks crazy with a sword in his hand.
Okay.
So there's a monk and the rabbit, and then there's the there's the dog and the squirrel.
We know. Well, actually, no, that does make sense because they are long enemies. Like dogs. Are they? Well, dogs. Yeah, like the squirrel is the biggest temptation for a dog.
Oh.
Yeah. We're finding a thematic.
Well, it's not the cat. Thread. I don't know. I feel like
no, like cats and dogs hate each other. but dogs and squirrels is like, yeah.
News to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, the mechanics in this game is actually really quite hard to find out a lot about this. There's not much in the campaign. I wish they'd kind of, I don't know, I wish it was a bit clearer. But what I understand, it's a bit of a tug of war between two players where you're placing tiles out in these limited spots. It's a little bit like tile placement. There's a bit of like kind of area control, because when you, if it's an angel facing off against a demon and you've got more angels than demons, then all the demons have to be turned over, and the other player kind of loses that area control but gains, but there's a bit of positive player interaction because you also get something in reward for having them being turned over. So there's also this other board here, which is a shared board, and there's a meeple or a monk or something on here, and it's a circle, little, not really a rondel, just like a series of connected resources. And in order to be able to exchange resources that you've collected, the monk needs to be standing, or the character needs to be standing on the right symbol. And so that becomes a bit of a tug of war, because you actually have to pay to move him around that circle. And so, if you know that someone else the other person wants to trade, I imagine you could kind of hate to move him and pay money to move him away. And of course, the further away it is, the harder it's going to be to kind of balance off your money and your need to get rid of these resources. That's what I understand the game to be. There's also some, I believe, like race-like objectives as well to this game. But an interesting little two-player game. And then the other one is The Road to Canterbury.
I love this one. In the theme, you are a pardoner, but what you're doing is, in The Road to Canterbury, you are tempting travelers to commit some of the deadly sins, some of the 7 deadly sins, and then when they do, you're then charging them a fee to pardon them so that they can, enter heaven.
Sneaky.
So sneaky, but it's kind of like a hilarious hustler type concept. Yeah,
it's pretty dark theme. I love it.
It's dark, but it is tongue in cheek, like you said. It's kind of like
Oh, I should also mention that these are both by Eagle Gryphon Games, so that is a well-known publisher for having high quality components. So they've redone the artwork here. They've got a new, I think it's even a husband and wife who did the designs for this. But you've got the 7 deadly sins in the center. I really struggled to work out what you were actually trying to do in this game. Like, I didn't quite get past the explanation that Maggie said, which is basically being tempted to do things and then being punished and ultimately even dying, I believe. But yeah,
it makes sense. That's what happens in real life.
I'm sure if I wanted to research, I could probably go to some older videos of the old game. But there just wasn't, I don't know, there wasn't enough here that got me super excited. I think that another part of this is that even though during the pandemic, Maggie and I have been playing a lot more 2-player games, it's not really a common player count. And both of these games, they're kind of selling themselves as 2-player. I know that this one actually, it's 2 to 3 players. But still, we tend to play with 4 players a lot. And so for that reason, probably, I'm not sure about this one.
I would try just because of the
theme.
Yeah, for me it'd be a go just because the themes are so like
out there,
weird and out there, that I'd want to want to try them out.
And the price, I mean, I don't normally talk about price because Australian dollars, Australian shipping, but Illuminate has, is $29, and so is The Road to Canterbury. But if you buy both of them, it's $56. Seems like a pretty good deal for 2 games. So probably, maybe, I haven't backed it yet, but based on Maggie's response, maybe we'll give this a go.
I'd be keen.
Yeah, and see how it goes. Now, the next campaign that I really want to talk about is the Dice Towers campaign for 2021. I actually backed Dice Tower 2020. They had a few issues with fulfillment because of COVID reasons, of course, understandable, and that's just kind of coming through now. We're just going to receive our promo packs soon. But what the Dice Tower campaign is really a one-off funding event each year that they have to help pay their employees, to help contribute to all the things that they do in the hobby. They offer in exchange merchandise, so they have dice towers, they have plushies, they have playmats, all those usual suspects. But they also partner with different publishers to get one-off promos to go with either games that are already published or upcoming games. And sometimes those promos are dice tower themed with their characters, the little different die that they have for each of their people. And now I know that some people would say, they're like a really big channel, like why are they doing this kind of campaign and this fundraising, and why should I back them? And I guess for me personally, and I can only speak from my personal experience, is that I think about it quite simply, and that's, well, I get so much out of their content every year. The amount of content that I consume incidentally even, because, you know, they have such a broad range of contributors on the Dice Tower. I do end up watching a lot of their stuff. The main reason why I backed it last year and this year is because of the podcast specifically. I love their podcast, and I've always listened to their podcast. In particular, I really, really love Mandy and Suzanne. For me, they have really similar taste to us. I really respect their opinion. I love that, you know, Suzanne always is going on about roll and rights, and and they both love like small publishers and things coming out of Asia, and like I just get a lot of intel and excitement, and you know, I just find it a really happy place. And so for me, it's a no-brainer to contribute to the hours of joy that gives back to me. But actually, after I backed it, I found out that our good friend Tim from Meepleville in Vegas, our favorite gaming store in the US, and actually we met Tim at the store, and then we came back year after year and like kind of got to know him. And this is kind of pre-channel, and he's doing a lot of stuff online now, of course, and he's actually one of the stretch goals here.
We know a stretch
goal. We know a real life stretch goal. And Tim is going to be, if they meet this stretch goal, which I'm sure they will because they're getting quite close to it already, they will start a review show. Tim with Tom and Z will start a review show for older board games, and that sounds really cool. And yeah, again, want to support everything that Tim's doing, and yeah, so I'm super excited about that. Now, the way that it works is that if you're going to back this campaign, you get a choice. Aside from all the extras that you can, or the add-ons that you can add to your pledge, there are a range of different packs that have different promos included in them. So they label these. So this is the A pack, and this has, you know, a promo for just one wavelength. But the one that I've actually backed, just because I know that people will ask which one I chose, it had a lot to do with Maggie, actually. So I want to show her on here. And it's actually the C pack. So there are a couple of games here we don't own. Obviously, a couple of these are not really our style of games. Lost Ruins of Arnak is just like...
We're keen to play when we eventually get our hands on it.
Exactly. It's like an inevitable game that we will own. It will happen. And so that's why I'm happy to pick that one up. The other one is Isle of Cat. Because...
It's one of those games that like it was almost the game that we played the most last year, even though we never play it, the two of us, because it's usually too light for us. But everyone we know loves it so much that it just gets so much table time.
Well, because we have a lot of peripheral friends that we, like peripheral, not friends, peripheral gamers.
It's got different levels of gamers as well,
And so it came early 2020. It got delivered. And then we started sharing it with like friends that aren't usually into games. And what I really love about it, actually, there's a couple of like sneaky teachers in there, because it teaches you about polyomino tile laying, and it teaches you about card drafting, and those two things are like can be applied to heavier games. But every time after we taught them, we were like, okay, let's move on to this other game. They were like, no, let's play the cats with the boats, the cats with the boats. And so I mean, this is a couple of promo tiles.
Which is to say a lot, because like we only ever really played with other people at the start of the year, and then it was just the two of us for...
We played so much of this game.
But we just played this one game so many times that it was almost... It just got overtaken by Biblios. I think that was the only thing that we managed to play more in the whole of 2020.
Lots of games of Isle of Cats. So, and which is a great game, but it's just not a particularly heavy game. And then the other one is, I thought you'd be excited about Robinson Crusoe.
But
it's not just one like card. It's kind of bringing in this new special roof tiles function, which I thought that would be cool. Maggie likes that, plays it solo.
Yeah, because Amy doesn't co-op.
We don't. Well, we don't really co-op.
We don't really co-op.
No. Watergate is a 2-player game that I want to get my hands on, and even Rossio, I think, will end up playing. But then Cafe.
Yeah, Cafe. I love Cafe.
A special card for Cafe.
Which looks...
It looks strangely like all the
pretty
other
much
cards
like every
in
other,
Cafe.
So I don't really... it's... I mean, cool.
I don't know. But anyway, the promo cards are kind of by the by. This is like, you know, I mentioned the reasons why I am pledging. And so the next few games and the last that we'll talk about, this has gone on for quite some time. This chat, are ones that are upcoming. So next week or the week after, ones that just to give you the heads up to be on the lookout for. And the first one is I've linked to a BGG page in the forums because it's Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which is a game that we have never played. Actually, that's a lie. I've played it once, but quite early into the hobby. So it's not one that I've played
like the tutorial of the app version. So I haven't actually properly played.
In a chat with Meepleville, actually, in the new, and I'll do a little plug here, we were part of the first episode of The More Meeples, the Merrier, which is a new weekly show on BGG hosted by Tim, but the team at BGG are making a really concerted effort to fill the hobby with more diverse faces, with greater representation, more voices, more different styles of gamers, and I think that's a really great initiative, and this show is part of that. And we were on last week, so you can check that out by looking at our playlist, Conversations with Friends, or heading over to Meepleville's YouTube channel, Meepleville Cafe, where you can probably see every week from now on the recorded live show of that. But anyway, the reason why I was talking about that is because on the last episode, Maggie brought up the fact that she has not just a shelf of shame or opportunity, but she has apps of shame.
Whole screens of shame.
Board game apps. That have never been opened.
Yeah, that I'm like, oh, great, yes, this is fantastic. I'll download it because it might have been on sale or whatever, or it's a game that I've always wanted to play, never got around to it. I'll buy it and then it'll just sit there. Awkwardly staring at me. And I'm thinking like now reflecting on it, it's because it's still the learning curve, even when it's an app, it still takes that time and investment to like get your head around it. It's rare to see an app implementation that is as intuitive as a usual like mobile game.
I can't get into it. I want to because I know that there's like Root, for example, which you've
Root is actually really good. Like that's one game where they managed to do that.
I know, but there's something about the rule book and like sitting down with a cup of tea or sitting on the balcony and having I'm a bit old school with the games.
You lose that tactile element.
Anyway, back to Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So this is a collector's edition, and this is the link that I'll put in the description. Is a sneak peek of some of the inclusions of that. I think that I don't know if this was a dream because I couldn't find the reference again, but I believe there's going to be a deluxe version, but also a colossal version where all of the like room tiles are like big. And I love many things, but I love big things as well.
Like either extremely tiny or extremely big, nothing in between.
Nothing in between.
If you're normal size, then nothing to do with
normal size. So you can see that's going to have game trays. You can see some minis there that look like they need a good painting. There's some new expansions, new rooms, upgraded artwork.
Love the trays though. Like that's one of my biggest pet peeves.
Are so good.
Is figuring out how to get stuff back into a box. So I love if you have a good insert, a good game tray. I've dabbled in trying to make my own with foam core. I quite enjoy it. It's a lot harder than I anticipated, which is why I don't do more of it. But
And decoupage. She then decoupaged it.
Yeah, because then it just looked weird, and I'm like, it just looks kind of clunky. So let me decoupage it to try and hide. But then that takes even longer.
So trays are good.
Yes, it's a ready-made tray.
So there's some buildings here, and there's some other stuff. But I'm looking forward to this because I really enjoy a collector's edition. The thing that I really respect and love about this is that the publisher, before launching this, has gone back and surveyed people who love the game, have spoken to gamers, and kind of identified all of the weird kinks and things that people didn't appreciate about the first versions, and they've gone really far to try and rectify all of these. So it's not just deluxeification for deluxeification's sake, but actually improving the game.
That's
and
cool.
So I'm really excited
market
to
research there. Some good, 1,000 respondents. Look at that. survey.
Good quantitative sample.
Yeah.
The next one is Primal, The Awakening. This is a game that I will put out there now that I doubt we will be backing this. This is a cooperative monster hunting game, absolutely not in our wheelhouse, but I just wanted to show you in case you are someone who loves minis, like these minis just look amazing. There's a lot of hype around this game and this is launching soon, so I just wanted to mention that. And the final one is, please, will you launch this now, is Carnegie. So I've been kind of giving people the heads up that this is coming for the last kind of month of last year. And then it got delayed and it got delayed. The reason why I'm so excited about this, and a lot of people are excited about it, first of all, Ian O'Toole Art. Yes, please. Love his work. And it's by, I think it's Javier or Xavier, I'm not quite sure, Xavier Gorges, who is, I believe, a French designer, but his work is really well known as well. So Black Angel is one, Toi is another, trying to think, Gingopolis is another game that he designed. So he's had some really well-loved designs, and I can't wait to see what this game is all about, because it looks very much like a big dry Euro that we will love. Anyway, that is it for us. So okay, so this year we have put a lot of time and energy to thinking about how to change up our channel. The Kickstarter one in particular was a great source of contemplation for me, because I really love all the conversation that goes on in the chat. And there was quite like a loyal group of people that I felt like were in the same position as me, backing a lot of things and just wanting to talk about it, and that was so much fun. And so I was reluctant to change the format, but I'm really excited to have this new series with Maggie as part of it.
I'm an intruder, we'll see how it goes.
And also to be able to cover off each game in a bit more depth. I think that even though I had the acronym of diaries before, it started to make less and less sense, because this format we can just kind of link to the games down below. So if you're interested in only one particular game, people can skip around, or if you're coming back and viewing this later, at least you can find the game that you're looking for and our perspective of it, and whether we ended up backing it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And then if we did, then there might be a review eventually in a few years, when we get the Kickstarter, when it actually gets fulfilled and delivered.
But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Please, because the reason why I mentioned that we're changing our formats, that we have another series that's going to be on the alternate week of this. And if you've made it to the end of this video, I'll give you the sneak preview of that. It is going to be a very informal chat about small box games. We have a lot of them. We don't do full reviews of all of them, because it's very hard with our normal format of breaking down a game into mechanics and theme. When it's a small box, it really tends to favor mechanics over theme.
They don't lend themselves a lot usually to heavy thematic
because you don't really have time to build up that immersiveness. But it doesn't mean we don't love them. And so we wanted to talk about these games and have a way to highlight a few of them in a single video. And so that's what we'll be starting up next week. So have a look out for that. Please let us know in the comments anything else you'd like to see from us this year, what you thought about this video. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Chat to us in the comments. What are you backing out of these? Are there any other games that I've missed that you're backing and I should? Let me know. But anyway, we will be back soon with more game reviews. So bye for now.
Bye.